In the New York underworld, Rocco Moretti was a ghost story told to keep grown men awake at night. He didn't just break bones. He dismantled souls. But the night he dragged a trembling waitress named Stella into his private ring, he made the last mistake of his life. He thought he was toying with a mouse. He didn't notice the way her feet gripped the floor. He didn't see the scars on her knuckles hidden by cheap makeup. Stella wasn't afraid of Rocco. She was afraid of the monster she'd spent 6 months trying to kill, the one living inside her own skin. The air inside the obsidian smelled like 3 things: expensive scotch, old money, and the silent vibration of terror. This was Rocco's throne room. Stella adjusted her thick glasses. They were heavy, ugly, and perfect. For 3 weeks, she had been a shadow. She wore a uniform 3 sizes too big to hide the corded muscle in her back. She walked with a fake trip, a small stumble. Anything to mask the predatory grace of a woman who had survived the death pits of Berlin. To the world, she was Stella, the girl who forgot orders. To the ghosts of her past, she was the wraith. Wine. Now, a voice barked, came from the center booth. The Lion's Den. Rocco Moretti sat there, looking like a dark prince. He was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous, wearing a suit that cost more than the apartment Stella was hiding in. Next to him was Victor, a loud-mouthed associate from Chicago who was 3 drinks past stable. "Yes, sir," Stella whispered. She kept her voice thin, weak. As she reached for the cork, Victor's hand shot out like a snake. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her hard. "Look at this, Rocco," Victor sneered. "A pretty face hiding behind garbage. Why do you keep the help so frumpy?" Stella's brain went into combat mode instantly. Snap the wrist. Pivot. Drive the corkscrew into the carotid artery. She forced the impulse down. She let herself stumble instead. "Please let go," she begged. "Victor, stop playing with the trash," Rocco said. He didn't even look up from his papers. He wasn't being kind. He was just bored. Victor laughed and gave her arm a violent jerk. The bottle tilted. The 1996 Shadow Margot, red, thick, and permanent, didn't go into the glass. It poured directly onto Rocco's pristine white shirt and his charcoal lapel. The room went dead. The music seemed to vanish. Rocco slowly closed his folder. He looked at the red stain spreading across his chest. Then he looked at Stella. His eyes weren't angry. They were empty. That was worse. "Do you know what this suit is made of?" he asked. His voice was a soft purr. I'm so sorry, sir," Stella stammered. She reached out with a napkin, but Rocco's bodyguard, Luca, caught her hand, crushing her fingers. "Don't touch him," Luca growled. Rocco stood up. At 6 feet 3 inches, he cast a shadow that felt like a tomb. "The wool is from the Andes. $12,000. The wine? Another 3, Rocco said. He stepped into her space. He smelled like sandalwood and cold iron. "You're a waitress. It would take you 3 years of tips just to pay for the laundry bill." He waited for her to cry. They always cried. But Stella didn't. Behind her glasses, her eyes were steady. Her breathing was rhythmic. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She was lowering her heart rate for a fight. Rocco tilted his head. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. She wasn't shaking. "You have very good balance," he murmured. Then he lashed out. A backhand slap. It wasn't meant to kill, it was meant to humiliate. To knock the glasses off her face. In a fraction of a second, Stella's training took over. She didn't think. She moved. Her head slipped left. A perfect boxing slip. Her hand shot up, checking his forearm and redirecting the blow into thin air. Rocco's hand hung in the empty space where her face had been. The silence in the club turned heavy enough to suffocate. Stella realized her mistake instantly. She hunched her shoulders and looked at the floor. I flinched. "Sorry." Rocco wasn't buying it. The boredom was gone. In its place was a sharp, predatory hunger. "A waitress doesn't dodge me by accident," he whispered. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "You didn't flinch. You slipped a jab." He turned to Luca. "Clear the room. Everyone. Out." The basement of the obsidian was a world of cold concrete and shadows. In the center sat the ring. The canvas was gray, stained with the history of men who had crossed the Moretti family. Rocco stripped off his ruined shirt. His torso was a map of old wars, scars from blades and bullets. He bounced on the balls of his feet, moving like a man who enjoyed the taste of copper in his mouth. 1000 says she cries in 30 seconds. Victor laughed, leaning against the ropes with a fresh drink. Stella stood outside the ropes. She had ditched the oversized uniform. Underneath, she wore a simple tank top and leggings. The clumsy girl was gone. Her muscles were long, lean, and coiled like a spring. She stepped onto the mat barefoot. The texture of the canvas triggered a rush of adrenaline she hadn't felt in months. Stay clean, she told herself. Don't kill him. Just survive. Gloves? Stella asked. Bare knuckle? Rocco replied, his voice a dangerous purr. I want to feel it when I hit you. The bell rang. Rocco lunged. He threw a straight right, a heavy, professional punch meant to end the night. Stella saw it coming a mile away. She saw the tension in his shoulder, the shift in his lead foot. She could have shattered his ribs with a counter. Instead, she panicked on purpose. She ducked low, letting the wind of his fist whistle over her head. Slippery, Rocco grunted. He followed up with a hook. Stella let herself get cornered. She went into a shell defense, tucking her chin and bringing her elbows tight to her ribs. To Rocco, it looked like she was cowering. In reality, she was absorbing every blow on her forearms, calculating his power. He's strong, she thought, but he overcommits. He's fighting a waitress. He's not looking for a trap. One of Rocco's punches grazed her cheek, splitting the skin. The warmth of blood trickling down her face changed everything. The wraith didn't like to bleed. Rocco saw the blood and grinned. He wound up for a massive haymaker, a rookie mistake. He left his entire midsection open. Stella's body didn't wait for her permission. She dropped her level, pivoted her hip, and drove her fist upward into his solar plexus. Thud. It was a wet, heavy sound. The air left Rocco's lungs in a violent spray. He staggered back, his face turning a sickly shade of purple. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't speak. He just stared at her with bulging eyes. The gym went silent. Victor dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor. I got lucky, Stella whispered, backing away. You slipped. Bullshit. Rocco wheezed, clutching his chest. He forced himself upright, his eyes burning with a terrifying new light. That was a professional liver shot. You didn't get lucky. You're a killer. He walked toward her, but the aggression was gone. It was curiosity now. He grabbed her hand, turning her palm over to see the thick, yellow calluses on her knuckles. These aren't from carrying trays, he whispered. The heavy steel door at the top of the stairs blew off its hinges. Boss, we've got a problem, the bouncer screamed, but he was cut short by a burst of gunfire. The gallows, a rival syndicate, had arrived. 3 SUVs full of tactical mercenaries were breaching the club. This wasn't a street fight. It was a hit. Get to the safe room, Rocco shouted, pulling a pistol from a hidden holster. He looked at Stella. Go, out the back. You're free. Stella turned to run. This wasn't her war. She could disappear into the night and be a ghost again. But then she saw the lead gunman enter the gym. He had a suppressed MP5 leveled at Rocco's back. Rocco was busy firing at the door, oblivious. The waitress would have run. The wraith did something else. Stella didn't head for the exit. She launched herself across the gym, clearing the ring ropes in a single vault. The gunman didn't expect a frontal assault from a woman in leggings. By the time he adjusted his aim, Stella was inside his dead zone. She slapped the barrel of his rifle upward. Pop, pop, pop. The bullets hit the ceiling. In the same motion, she drove her elbow into his throat. The sound of crushing cartilage echoed in the room. She caught his falling weapon before it hit the floor, spun, and used his slumping body as a human shield. Down! She roared at Rocco. Rocco watched, mesmerized. In 14 seconds, Stella cleared the room. She didn't spray bullets. She placed them. 2 shots, 2 dead. A flying scissor kick to the 3rd. When the smoke cleared, Stella stood in the center of the carnage, her chest heaving, the suppressed rifle held with the casual ease of a soldier. Rocco lowered his gun. He looked at the bodies, then at her. "You're not a waitress," he said, his voice hollow. "You're the Phantom of Berlin." Stella put her glasses back on. The frames were bent, and her face was covered in blood. "We need to move," she said, her voice now flat and cold. "The cleanup crew is 2 minutes behind them. If you want to live, Mr. Moretti, you're going to have to start listening to the help." The drive to Queens was silent. They weren't in an armored SUV anymore. They were in a stolen, beat-up sedan that Stella had hot-wired in the dark. Rocco sat in the passenger seat, his knees touching the dashboard, looking at his bloody hands. "My penthouse is a fortress," Rocco muttered. "We should go there." "Your penthouse is a target," Stella countered, her eyes scanning the rearview mirror. "They know your safe houses. They don't know mine." Her apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in Astoria. It didn't have a doorman or bulletproof glass. It had a mattress on the floor, a single lamp, and a trauma kit hidden under a loose floorboard. Rocco looked around the tiny, gray room. "I own storage units larger than this. It has 4 exits, thin walls so I can hear footsteps, and neighbors who mind their own business," Stella said, tossing him a towel. "Sit. Shirt off." As she cleaned his wounds, the tension changed. It wasn't about the debt anymore. Rocco looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the scars on her shoulder blade, a tattoo of a black knight. "Berlin," Rocco whispered. 2 years ago, you broke the heavyweight champion of the European circuit. Then you vanished. There's a $5 million bounty on your head, Stella." Stella stopped cleaning his cut. She met his gaze. "Is that why you're still here?" "To collect." Rocco reached out, his fingers brushing the hair away from her face. "I don't want the money. I want the woman who can clear a room in 14 seconds. Stay. Help me take back my city, and I'll use my resources to wipe your slate clean. No more bounties. No more hiding. A real life." Stella looked at the gun on the table, then at him. "How do I know I can trust a man who breaks spirits for a living?" "You can't," Rocco admitted. "But right now, I'm the only one who sees you for what you really are. And I'm the only one who can help you stop running." The peace lasted until dawn. Stella, whose internal clock was wired for betrayal, caught the vibration of a phone on the table. It was Victor's. She checked the logs. Victor, the coward, had sent 3 messages to an unknown number. "We are in Astoria. Brick building. The girl is the shooter. Bring the heavy crew." Stella didn't scream. She didn't panic. She walked over to Victor, grabbed him by his hair, and slammed his face into the table. "Rocco, wake up," she said coldly. "We have company." She forced Victor to text back. "Bodyguard is dead. Door is unlocked. Come in quiet." The ending didn't happen in a basement. It happened at the Obsidian 2 nights later. The gallows were celebrating. They thought Rocco was dead. They were drinking his scotch in his club. Then the power cut. 10 seconds of pure, terrifying darkness. When the emergency red lights flickered on, Rocco Moretti was standing on the bar. He wasn't wearing a tattered shirt anymore. He was in a fresh tuxedo, looking like a god of vengeance. Beside him stood Stella. She wore a sleek, backless black dress that showed off every muscle and every scar. She held 2 suppressed pistols with the steady hands of a surgeon. "Carlo," Rocco's voice boomed, "you're sitting in my chair." The room erupted. The gallows guards reached for their weapons, but Stella was a blur of black silk and muzzle flashes. She didn't just fight. She dismantled them. She used the environment, shattering bottles, heavy tables, the very architecture of the club, to turn the tide. Within minutes, the floor was covered in groaning men. Rocco reached the main table and grabbed the rival boss, Carlo, by the throat. "I'm not going to kill you, Carlo," Rocco whispered. "That's too easy." "Stella?" Stella stepped forward, holding a tablet. I just sent your private ledgers and offshore accounts to the FBI. They'll be here in 5 minutes. You won't die today, but you'll spend the rest of your life in a cage. 3 months later, the obsidian looked different. The vulgarity was gone. It was sharp, modern, and quiet. Rocco stood on the balcony, looking over New York. Stella walked up behind him wearing a tailored suit that matched his. She was no longer a shadow. The families have agreed to the new terms, she said. No more human trafficking. No more street wars. We move into tech and security. Rocco turned and pulled her close. He didn't look at her as a weapon or a waitress. He looked at her as his equal. I still owe you $15,000 for that suit, he joked. Stella smiled, a real one this time. Keep it. You gave me a kingdom. I think we're even. The clumsy waitress was dead. The phantom was retired. Now, there was only the Queen of New York, and God help anyone who dared to challenge her throne.